This time in Goss's Garage, well, I want to tell you about two caps on your car that can lead to big problems if you don't check them first. Now, one of the more typical ones that we find are radiator caps. Now, radiator caps don't seem like much of an issue. You know, they're there, they're out of sight, they're out of mind, and so on. But the thing that you have to remember is that radiator caps allow the cooling system in your car to produce pressure. Now, why do we want pressure in the cooling system? Well, as we increase the pressure, the boiling point of the coolant inside the cooling system, the boiling point goes up relative to the pressure. So more pressure, the higher the boiling point. Now, that means that many modern cars operate at temperatures that with zero pressure, they would boil over, they'd overheat. And that, of course, can lead to all sorts of problems. But here's the issue. You see, lots of technicians don't start looking for an overheating problem by testing the radiator cap. And that should be the first thing that you do. Because that radiator cap, if it's leaking pressure, could be the sole cause of your overheating, why the car is boiling over. Now, these are tested using a kit such as we have here. This is a radiator pressure tester and a radiator cap tester, and it has all of these different adapters with it. And you connect it up, put the radiator cap on it, then pump pressure into the cap or into the cooling system on the car. And if it leaks down, it tells you that the cap, or if you're testing the cooling system, it tells you that there's a leak either in the cap or the cooling system. So this is where you start with that overheating problem, and not just pressurizing the cooling system. Pressurize the cap first, because that may be the whole cause. So that's our first problem cap. Our second one, well, that's one like this. This is a fuel cap, gas cap, whatever you want to call it. And those can lead to some very expensive mistakes. See, here we have a very typical one. And this is the screw-on type. Screw it on, and when it gets tight, it clicks, and so on. Well, modern cars, their fuel systems have a little pump built into them. And what they're trying to do with this pump is they're trying to make sure that fumes from the fuel system, the fumes from the fuel tank, can't escape out into the atmosphere and pollute the air around us. So what they do is, number one, they trap these fumes in what's called a vapor storage canister, and then when the engine starts, these fumes are pulled out of the vapor storage canister and burned with the gasoline. But there is a small pump in this system, because they want to make sure that it's airtight. There's a pump that after you start the car, it pressurizes the fuel system, the fuel tank, that portion of it. And then the computer watches that pressure to see how many seconds it takes for the pressure to drop. And if the pressure drops too rapidly, then what happens is that it triggers the check engine light. Okay, so gas caps fail. These gas caps have various seals and different things in them, and if they leak off that pressure too rapidly, you're going to get a check engine light. Now, unfortunately, a lot of technicians don't see the need to step up for a kit like we have here. These are adapters that fit the different gas caps. There's many different styles of them. And what happens with this is that you put one of those adapters onto this tester like this. Let's see if we can make this happen here. All right, there we go. And then what the technician does is screw the cap into this adapter, and then you push this, and of course we can't, there we are, we've got pressure. And they time the amount of time that it takes for that pressure to bleed off, and either it meets specs or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, you put a new gas cap on and turn the check engine light off and see if that corrects the problem. Because in many cases, rather than getting into complex testing of the emission system on the car, simply placing a new gas cap on it will correct the problem. And if you have a question or a comment, how about dropping me a line right here at radio@goss-garage.com.